So could you mute yourself?
Thank you for coming out tonight to the University Heights Service and Utilities Committee meeting. I'm just going to start off with some sad news, and I regret to inform you that the party's not here. He told me last night that we had a death. So, and we look forward to working together on whatever is this next week. Okay. 1 year ago, I was honored with the assignment to chair the Service and Utilities Committee. We embarked upon a goal to follow up with the 2020 solid waste study recommendations to the extent that the committee can do so. It is ultimately up to the administration to fulfill and actualize the recommendations according to the will of University Heights residents. So just for some review and then to add in, first recommendation, education and awareness pertaining to recycling. So this committee brought expert presenters to our forum, resulting in recycling improvement education, composting education. It helped lead to a centralized composting site at the Walt. Education information tonight will be to clarify some definitions with an emphasis on recycling industry standards. I had the distinct pleasure of speaking to representatives of various agencies who are at the forefront of influencing and establishing industry standards in Washington, for example, from the Recycling Partnership, and some other agencies, organizations. So the first definition I would like to clarify, something called a recycling desert. Recycling desert refers to communities with little or no access to recycling collection on household property, or with unreasonable distances to access recycling centers. Thank goodness we are not one of those. But when the industry standards refers to curbside collection, which is the next definition I'd like to talk about, that is the industry standard. For instance, Recycling Partnership has written 2 major studies, one in 2015 and one in 2020, regarding the state of curbside recycling. And it's loaded with lots of great information. 2020 document is 76 pages. I'm familiar with that if you can. And I'll bring forth some of those things that could be readily implemented or considered here in the university. So curbside collection, which is what it's called, we've heard that term many times. Other people, I always thought curbside was a yard or side door, but that's not at all what it is. Curbside simply means at the household, at the residential property, because that's what the typical type of collection is. So it is opposed to recycling deserts, and that's why it's the standard. So backyard or sidewalk collection is a convenient type of curbside collection. And for the purposes of just ease, so those terms will be interchangeable. Backyard, sidewalk, it's the same thing. is on property where, we understand that it is private. So the materials recovery facilities, which we are familiar with, the MRFs. There are MRFs that, so we currently have a contract with Kimball, and we're familiar with the types of recyclables that they accept and that they don't accept. We had John Johnson come and talk to us about the types of equipment they have and the reasons for why some MRFs can recycle some things and others are not able to do so. But there are a variety of MRFs out there that are to accept more types of recyclables, like yogurt cups, for example, that which our current contract with MRF. There are also MRFs that include trash audits, recycling and other audits, including in the pricing. We heard from Kimball that that's an additional. But that really is something that's critical to understand, really, for our community, what where we stand and how we're doing. Not just the statistic, but really how to set our own goals and achieve improvements. I know the mayor's talked about the 30-30 pledge and those partnerships, something like that would go a long way to helping us really understand baseline and metrics for how to improve recyclables. There are MRFs publicly traded on the New York Stock Exchange, which implies additional oversight and scrutiny, which MRF that we are connected with does not. And MRFs, because of all these reasons and all these other types of benefits, it could be to University Heights' advantage to bid competitively for improved cost efficiencies, as well as achieving our goals for improved recycling. So I'd like to take a second for specific matter. Another thing to discuss, definition, is that of 100% participation, opt-in participation, and different types of voluntary types of recycling participation. And what I discovered in my discussions were distinct thoughts about this. So I'm going to share with you my understanding on both sides. You can kind of think about what makes sense for us here at University Heights. So on the one side, let me heard about this. Could you please mute? On the one side, there's the 100% participation, which the thought is to provide tools, which is cups or bins distributed to 100% of the residents to give access to everyone in the community, every household at their curbside or household residence property, in our case, here, to reduce any barriers to getting recycling containers. So there could be all kinds of barriers. One such thing could be language if in order to for someone to receive that same type of bin, for instance. 100% free card distribution. Now, I asked the question about, are there studies for when this type of distribution results in residents who do not wish to recycle or cannot, or for whatever reason. As we know, like the vast majority of our, and I'll get to the statistics, over 65% still want to see recycling, but there's a third of our residents who do not respond that way. What if they get cards and they say, well, thank you, city, for the extra garbage bin, and they start throwing away contaminated solid waste? You know, everybody is supposed to acknowledge that's a possibility. I do not have a sense that there is so to that extent. But the people that I spoke to, for instance, get the recycling partnership, said what they recommend is I don't know if recommends the right word, but what? Yeah, I think it is recognized. What she spoke strongly about is you distribute 100% of the cards, and then you communicate with residents. And you get this with the residents, the service collector, you know, so as well, we have things sticking out of it that should be in there, you know, whatever it is. And if there's X amount of times if that person is non-compliant, you confiscate the card. So this is an interesting concept. We also talked about collecting solid waste scenarios, different scenarios. Collecting solid waste on one, you know, days a week, collecting recycling on another. And in their opinion, because it would be at the curbside one day for everything, they didn't want people up and down like 104 times a year. Okay, so now we get to but that doesn't exist collection at this time. So the other side of it is there are the agencies that feel that residents should understand the pros and the cons of recycling. It's not all pros, there are hardships that could be involved, like taking the bins to the curb, or getting the right bin, or understanding how to recycle correctly. And feel strongly about letting them have the right to choose whether or not they wish to participate, volunteer, versus forcing it on them. Since some residents do not value recycling, which is communities are, providing 100% with bins is likely to result in unwanted contamination, which then unfortunately causes higher costs to the rest of the community to bear. So allowing people to opt in voluntarily at no cost versus forcing them to comply with distribution or confiscating carts that may feel like it's a punitive measure to taxpayers, you know, but that's just another way to look at it. So when you're considering 100% participation or opting in or some other way to engage people to recycle and providing tools with which to do it and the conveniences that they express they need, we can maximize the recycling rate that possible. I believe that we are on the same page, that we want to be able to do that. Another thing that was brought up is to remember that the primary objective of collection, of rubbish collection, is a sanitation and public health service. That's really the whole reason behind trash collection, to ensure proper sanitation. And recycling is wonderful, but that needs to be in place first. I think we've got that, but it's just part of the conversation. And as far as a scenario of collecting solid waste for X number of days, and then collecting recycling on another day, fine, or afternoon, or if it continues in our backyards or side doors, that does not pose a set out issue or confusion. It's still, put your garbage out any day of the week, any time of the day, 24/7, 365, and it will be picked up. It doesn't, you don't have to remember to take it to the curb. So those are just some points. There are many more points, but those were, I think, the most relevant, and I can answer questions later. Okay, so those are different definitions, different things to just clarify as we try to make sense of this and move forward. The second recommendation of the 2020 study was customer service. So in an effort to provide the highest level of customer service regarding the collection of rubbish and recycling, University Heights residents were provided with 2 opportunities to express their preferences. In both instances, the top 3 preferences identified include, number 1, maintain current backyard collection. 63.5% were very satisfied according to the Baldwin Wallace survey, and 49% were satisfied in the solid waste district RRS survey. The next is recycling importance, improving the rates. In both surveys, it was in the mid-60s. Almost 66% very important, and the solid waste district RRS survey was 65 to 84%. It's very clear that people want to improve their recycling in our city. This question was asked in the Baldwin Wallace survey, but I don't believe it was asked in the solid waste district RRS survey, but it's inferred by another response. So to maintain our city municipal service staff, 61% prefer that, according to the Baldwin Wallace. And while it wasn't directly asked, I understand that 49% want to maintain our backyard collection, that infers that you need the service staff to do that. So I just put that out there. But it's very clear from both surveys that the majority want better recycling. So this brings us to the question of collection models with corresponding expenses that are included in your summary sheet that's handed out. Okay. I would like to point out 2 corrections to the tweet, which I want to thank Mr. Cooney for bringing to my attention. The first thing is I totally misspoke when I put the word. What I meant to say was there are scenarios with staffing inclusions as they are and staffing reductions. The word layoff was included, and that's really an inappropriate word because while the scenario may include staffing reduction, that is out of our purview. That is an administrative decision made if it ever came to that. Layoffs being one type of service. So I apologize for that misspeaking that term. The other is right in the center where it says municipal in-house automated curbside. Okay, there are 5 different scenarios. There's a number that's missing. Yes. The 5-year capital expenses annualized related equipment, it's $5,000 amortized in this center section because we see the in-house automated curbside with and without, with full staff or with service reduction. It's supposed to be identical except for that labor cost. Okay, so we'll add 55,000 to the middle side. The bottom line, we can go through this to the extent that we wait through ethics. We talk about assumptions. The bottom line is service collection of rubbish and recycling is very labor intensive. It is the reason for the high cost. There are minor differences between the different scenarios when you consider labor staying as it is now. The only significant change is when labor is reduced. Yeah.
I just want to be clear on the spreadsheet here. So every scenario is basically the same expense. However, the only way that to see any savings in municipal in-house automating visit their staff.
Correct. I want to point out that the numbers that are used in this scenario are, I want to point out that the current, and they even include 2023 budgeted numbers. They are very up to date. After I completed I did give it to Mr. Kennedy just for a cursory review, just to make sure that he was in agreement with what I had on the sheet, and that did happen. Just now quickly go through what the final points of the 2020 solid waste study include. 3.1 is the trash program. The study advises the city to, quote, consider rerouting the entire city to obtain the best efficiency for trash routes with demonstrated cost savings of 10 to 25%. There are numerous results and suggestions for computer programs to assist. University Heights trash collection routes have not been rerouted since 2004. Long time. And so that could help with cost efficiencies. It could also help with labor. If there are any problems with workers' comp, I don't know. We haven't seen the tracking, so I don't know if any of it's related to that. To have something more equitable in terms of days, trash tonnage collected on different days would be very helpful. Also to free up some time, maybe in the afternoons, to do some of the things that the service wants to do in the parks or those types of things. We don't know. We don't know because again, it hasn't. This particular recommendation has not been acted upon. The next one is 3.2, resident requirements for rubbish collection. The administration can decide if and how, if and or how to implement more effective communication and education to improve rubbish and recycling collection for residents and service personnel perspectives. It was pointed out, and it's in that study that I referenced from the Recycling Partnership, that education is not enough. Communication at the point of trash collection is critical and essential. Feedback is important if you really want to improve recycling. It reinforces, it brings it to the individual so that that individual for that household can reduce their contamination. The next is 4.1, recycling program Kubota modification. The study suggests to change the front recycling cans to 45 instead of 30 gallon. However, if this administration agrees to transition to loose recycling per today's directive, it can weigh the data and present a plan to council for backyard loose recycling that may be a different amount. The 4.2, the 2020 solid waste study recommends fair positioning for loose recycling, providing 18 to 22 gallon recycling totes to replace blue bags. 18 to 22 gallon may or may not be the right size. I would look to Mr. McCorney to help with that. It was recommended by the different agencies I spoke to that a 32 gallon bin may be okay. It's the regular size, but it would be less, not as heavy as solid waste when when throwing the loose recycling into the Kubotas. 4.3, the solid waste study recommends considering modifying the packer truck fleet to hold recyclables if Kubota front cans remain at 32 gallons. Again, this is something that's administration would have to present a plan that would make sense to support the directives that we'll present at the end of this meeting. And 5 is the paper program. If automated curbside is not implemented as in 0.6, then the 2020 study recommends promoting the FEPA program to include carpool. This may be considered as we embark upon establishing new services. So the last points that I just went through and reviewed are pretty much rest in the hands of the administration to include in a plan. And so this committee has taken it, has done as much as it could to this point. I would like to ask if there are any questions from the committee members first, before we proceed. Okay. Any questions from anyone here in that's present?
Yes, I have a question. You made reference to a committee recommendation about use of recycling pickup in the backyard. Has the committee already made that decision?
Well, we're going to talk about it. In this
Because
meeting.
you spoke of it as something that's under.
Well, I know that I mentioned it probably since last March. When it became apparent to me that blue bags were not the way to go. And then I was told that that's not going to be the recommendation. So I took it back, and now we are in a position that we've done some due diligence to talk about it in a more direct manner.
What due diligence have you done to reach?
Okay, so we've had presenters, and I've listened to them and taken it to heart things that they said, whether it's Karen Miller from the Solid Waste District, or Zoe Ebersdorf, or Elizabeth Higgins-Raymer, and Don Johnson, as to what the pros and cons for blue bags recycling is. And I've also visited other service departments. All of these are public records. You've been present. I'm just recapping. The service departments that I did not visit, I must have called about 2 dozen service departments and spoke to service departments. So I got a feel for the pros and the cons, ins and outs of different types of trash collection. I mentioned that I just very recently spoke to representatives from agencies that actually influence or establish industry standards. And so Blue Bags is not part of that. And of course, we have the surveys, at least to give us the direction of what our residents want, to balance that with how to move forward in an effective manner that meets their needs. I may have overlooked something, but I've done a lot of due diligence.
Well, let's start with the people feedback on it. For example, who among them recommended loose recycling picked up?
Oh, I don't think they put that together per se. That particular was from just Blue Bags to loose recycling. The backyard is from the survey. If the survey would have said, over majority wants automated curbside, whatever, that's a different conversation, but that's not what the survey is telling.
But where on the survey was the question put loose recycling?
Well, unfortunately, that was omitted, sounds deliberately, especially since the public meetings that had been discussed as an option. And then I wasn't at the October 4th meeting, I think there was, but I understand the question. I saw that the question asked was why that was omitted, and the answer was a flippant, honestly, that's it was too expensive, so we didn't include it. Well, I'm here to show you it's not more expensive than any other collection.
All right, so we agree it's not in the surveys, the question whether residents would want loose recycling picked up in the backyard.
They
It's
want
also-
the backyard.
It's also not in the study. The solid waste study, we don't have loose collection of recycling backyard. Do we? Where is that?
Okay.
Maybe you should-
Mary, I think you agree that food recycling is better. So, right,
Right, food recycling, that's. But at no time was will engage to study that. It's not in the appendix of additional questions that were going to ask by council members. The closest we came was a bin of food recyclables taken to the curb, which proved to be the most expensive version in the GP environmental version. And you know, neither survey, not the one conducted by Baldwin Wallace through the CIC and not the one conducted by the solid waste district through RRS, brought this up either. So, you know, we don't have data, either opinion from the residents or expert opinion from solid waste consultants on this method.
Chairperson, the more expensive option that the mayor is referring to is having separated loose recycling primarily and backyard. Trash pickup. It was split. That's what the increase was. This model is proposing that both occurrences are back.
But we agree that in the GT study that isn't included and there's no analysis of that in that.
Sure.
Yes.
I think one of the things that's important to me as a council person is that I'm not limited to decisions. One of the things that's important to me is that I'm not limited as a council person to decisions we have to make. What you've done a fantastic job of doing is to synthesize data to provide us with this study along with third-party information. And one of the things that I think was important to me, and we've discussed this before, so I think that this was a potential option to be considered as that should come from this time. You know, our residents enjoy our trash. And I think that we've heard from several people that come before us that we need to do more to increase recycling participation. That we need to look to the recycling rate of the communities that are around us in the region. Try to emulate programs that do that. And I think when I heard the conversations, you know, that you've had on the public record, visits to Shaker House, and which uses that backyard users. I thought, you know, might this be a middle ground? I think one of the things that our city has admired too long is either or proposition. Either we get all backyard trash pickup the way it's always been, and that's what we say because that's the way it's always been. Or we move fully to the curbs, and that's what we do because that's what everyone else is doing, and that's the way people decided that they want to do it. So we should do it that way. But I do think that there is the opportunity for middle ground, the opportunity to begin the modernization process of our recycling. And that first step could be the changing from blue bags recycling to loose. I pick up doesn't necessarily change. But I think it's a step in the right direction. I think it honors the results of the survey and the desire that residents clearly have both to recycle and also to keep them out of the bank.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for putting together the numbers. It's sort of easy to look at. We're looking at all the survey numbers that come in, into surveys that went out. A lot of this is part of council's holding the financial purse strings, I guess so to speak, as we phrased it. And obviously, there's a significant difference with keeping service collection in-house with an automated curbside pickup. The number of staff required would be less. You're all in agreement.
Say that again.
The number of staff that would be required would be required less.
In which scenario?
Curbs, municipal in-house automated curbside 6.
Yes, if it's the same scenario with the current staffing or with the adjusted modified,
And
and it is the same.
right, and then essentially, if you look at municipal in-house waste recycling, backyard pickup, such as maintaining that. Obviously, the significant difference between those numbers are the costs of labor. So with that, and the difference in that is 38%, 38 to 40%. That is significant money. We are trying to, Mrs. Weiss has been last year, since more involved, obviously, but how can we financially find a way to do city facilities without looking at any potential revenue that would need to come from residents that we can make in our budget. You're looking at approximately $600,000-800,000. That is a significant number. And I think we all agree we need to look at monetization. This is the way to go. The other concern I have, as different municipalities, and we're one of 3 remaining in the county that city backyard pickup. How can we attract talent? We look at the requirements, can we lift up to 50 pounds 4 days a week, possibly 5, versus cities that border us, they're simply within the truck in the equipment is doing work for that. That is significant. So how are you going to find that talent? And the only way that's going to separate you is continue to raise wages. Versus if you try to go dollar for dollar with other cities that do curbside automation. I can imagine anybody would want to work at University Heights and lift 30 to 50 pound bins for 5 days a week. The other thing I noticed within the survey that came out from Paul Wallace, is you talk about the importance of recycling. I think we all agree that the majority of residents want to see recycling. We have we are limited currently with access that we can do. A move to loose recycling, where it's backyard curbside, is this opportunity to make that improvement. But one thing that's really interesting and stuck me, and I was looking at that in table 9, question 16. The curbside pick, in the middle, it says curbside pickup from 96 gallon trash, 64 gallon recycling containers provided by the city. When you go from 18 years old up to 65 years old, the younger residents want curbside. And these younger residents are the future of University Heights, the future of where we're going. Do I like backyard pickup? Absolutely. It's extremely convenient. But as we dig into the dollars, it's extremely expensive. So we look at the residents that are in University Heights as to what they prefer. The younger the resident, the less likely they want backyard pickup. They want to go curbside. We like to see, obviously, they're looking at financially what's cost. They see it, if they come from a city where they do curbside pickup, the overwhelming majority of us like to have that started here. So I understand where you look at, well, it's 61%, we want to maintain the current system. That's only 61%. That's not a significant number, that's not a vast majority. But when you start breaking down those that are going to be living in the city, hopefully the next 10 to 20 years, they prefer curbside as opposed to that kind of thing.
Thank you for those thoughtful comments. I'll try to go through them, okay?
I didn't want to throw that much.
No. Conversation. Yeah. So yes, it is a significant savings to have staff reduction. However, people are expressing that they want to maintain the service levels without staff reduction. So I'm not sure how we ignore that at this time. Things may change in the future if this is revisited. You know, it was thought, at least it was told to us early on, but we discovered that was not true, that we maintain the service people, but we reassign them to different job tasks. Well, we learned that the job tasks, there are some job tasks, like I mentioned, if we're more efficient with our routes, some of that can be sold now and implemented. But the types of jobs that we are paying, almost $500,000 for in outsourcing, we don't have the equipment nor the skill set to reassign our collectors. It's non-starter. So we're in agreement that there is that cost reduction, but if we are trying to meet the wishes of our taxpayers at this point in time, and our residents, I don't think that can be ignored.
Would the largest percentage of residents bear with me for a moment. The largest percentage of residents according to 2020 census are those that are 49 and under. And 49 and under workers.
So a lot of households have people with multiple children. I mean, I'm not sure. You know, if it's
It's down the survey results, in reference to all of us. You see curves. Now, when you account for the overall percentage, 61% shows the majority, but again, we're talking about the residents and they're hoping to be here for the next 10 to 20 years. They want our curbside. So I feel like they're being discounted. Actually, they're the majority of the surveys. Oh,
And I'm gonna skip to the answer. Yeah. I looked at the voter rolls that are you voted in the stats before. And there was a 20 some percent count of people who were at least 65 years old. Just to kind of get an idea of 1 in 4, 1 in 5 people. That's just people who voted. And again, it's just people who took the survey. But I do know that we have many people who have lived here for decades and paid into, pay taxes and are in their forever homes. Could be for the next 20, 30 years. People are living longer and they are stable. I don't know if the younger population is going to stick around. I don't know. People are very mobile and global this year. It's a different time. So that would be nice. I would like to do that, but I don't know that we know that for sure.
well, we
can't-
can say that from anyone 18. Right.
But I do know that there are some constituents who have lived here for decades. Some people even come back, and come to their childhood homes and live here. It's sad. So just to go a little bit further, your question about, or your comment about, how you're going to find labor. Okay. Shaker Heights, when we took the tour, it was for the facilities purpose, but we also got an opportunity to talk to them about their service department, how they're set up. They gave us a fabulous tour. Mr. King was there and so, and I asked the question about turnover, I asked the question about morale, and it seems like they have very little turnover, high morale. Not any, whatever claims pending with your workers' comp. It is possible. It is possible. To have them as a model. So,
May I address the Shaker
not yet. Thank you. And so, you know, I found that to be, it happens, it is breathing, it's there, and it's a thing. So what's the difference? I don't know, I'm not in our service department, you know, day to day. Mayor Brennan?
Yeah. Shaker Heights is having difficulty flavor just like you. They have posted right now on Indeed.com and have since December at least a request for refuse collectors. They're looking for 6 of them. They have 6 positions open that they're trying to fill. They're offering $2,000 signing bonuses to people who are willing to do it. They're not filling these positions. At least they have not. We have a shortage in our own. So I know we're hearing about, you know, the possibility of layoffs versus attrition versus, we've already got attrition. We do not have a full complement of workers right now. And if you're not sure whether or not that's the case, just right on over to Purvis Park and look at the giant leaf pile we have. We don't have food. You got people picking up trash cans. That always has to be done. Express is over everything. That leaf pile's gonna be there at least for 2 weeks. Because we don't have anybody to move fast. We have 11 out of 13 full-time refuse positions filled. We hired somebody last month who is yet to report. He was supposed to start before Christmas. He has not come in yet. He has said that he is sick, and maybe he is, and maybe he will yet report. But you know, we're desperate enough to get a full-time refuse collector here that we haven't just told him to forget. We're waiting to see if he will actually report. He said he was going to come to work for the first time this past Tuesday. Yeah, not here today. So I'm beginning to think he's not in. We have 4 part-time positions for refuse collection historically. They're slotted, they're budgeted. We only have 1 person part-time refuse collection. So we have a complement of 11 and 12 refuse collectors right now, when we ought to have about 17. And the part-time workers work 3 days a week. We have 4 days of collection. So they're here basically to help out on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. We don't have these folks. So we also have somebody who's going to be retiring in about a month. They're going to be down yet 1 more. So we are in a position where we're unable to hire. We're not getting people. And we ought to be adapting our system so that we don't need. Because people are leaving on their own. We had a guy last year who we had to let go because he couldn't physically do the job anymore, because this is backward work. We broke this thing. He is not able to do this job anymore. He is on partial disability because of having to lift thousands a week of these cans and hoist them into the Kubota. It just can't be done. It wear these guys out. And we can treat them better by automating. There is other work that's going to be done. It's going to be physical and have to be done day in and day out, on spiders. But there is a way of making this job a little bit easier, making it a little more competitive, being able to hire folks easier, because you can go to Beechwood, you can go to Cleveland Heights. There are lots of places that do in-house refuse collection as part of our service department, and it doesn't require the physical toll that happens in the University of Michigan.
My question is, I can sympathize with being shorter related. But the other service models, like say curbside in cities where there's curbside pickup, what is their vacancy or what's their turnover? How many jobs are they trying to fill right now? Since you were on Indeed, did you look at other rubbish jobs in other cities to see how many?
I did not.
Okay, I assure you it's consistent across.
So that was one of my comments here. on the other stuff, the leaf collection, we already have a contract with Minutemen for leaf collection. Why aren't we taking care of the car through outsourcing it for that particular thing?
Well, we have a contract with Minutemen through the CBA. CBA allows us to use Minutemen up to, what's up to 4, now it's up to 4 plus. If there are other service employees who are out, but generally it's still about 4. We're no longer the tenant. And that tenant is up. We are out, we are no longer under the union contract, allowing to hire Minutemen to come in absent a calamity. The time where we have a major storm and we need help with the trees out of the road. Or a mutual agreement with the union that we have to negotiate, it usually involves offering additional overtime as well.
Perhaps that wasn't the best decision then to dump those leaves at Purpose Park without forecasting how they did.
Well, there's nowhere else. And we simply don't, I mean, otherwise it would still be under every 3.
The other thing too is I can respect and I understand and it makes evident that this is not easy work. What's different now? It's been done for decades. The only thing that I see that's different is that there's a disparity in the amount of tonnage that's collected throughout the week. And without reassessing the routes, which could be more evenly distributed, perhaps, I don't know, do you know why people, this person has, there could be more to just that, oh, it's hard work. It could be due to a certain, it needs to be analyzed, like incident type thing. That's just an observation for where it's.
Yeah, thank you. So I just had a question for Mayor, actually, because we've been told over and over again that we would not reduce staff. And frankly, when I look at the municipal economy, and I do see that significant increase in expenses. And especially aside, because we were always told we're not going to reduce staff. So if you're saying now, yes, you know what? We're going to reduce staff so we can get to the municipal automated curve. I would consider that. But if you're not going to reduce the staff, then none of this makes sense because we have a majority that enjoys backyard. We have an option, it seems, to switch to loose recycling in the backyard that is literally the same cost as everything else. So if you're telling me that, yeah, I am going to reduce the staff, I'm ready to consider the municipal and automated, but I never heard it.
All right, well, I know Mr. Corney has talked about attrition, and that is also here. I've always said I'm not going to pay anybody off. My promise has been not to lay off people,
No,
but
I remember specifically you saying you're not going to reduce staff also.
I am not going to lay people off. We are in a position right now, active, where we have positions we can't fill. And if we had curbside auditing right now, we wouldn't have. We could eliminate those positions because we can't.
Back up, no. How many people we have? Does that include, empty positions, or is that just?
It was budgeted positions, and for refuse, it was 11 FTEs and 2 part-time. So that's 12 FTEs, not 17 or 18. 7 to 18 is the total number. So what I have is 21 FTEs, 3 are supervisors for 21 staff, an administrator, assistant administrator, and foreman, 2 mechanics, phone operator, maintenance person, non-union, 12 FTEs for refuse, which equals 13 by 1 sewer person, that equals 18 plus 3 supervisory.
So,
And what was reported on December 5th in that payroll were 19, so only 2 were absent from that full staff on December 5th.
Well, there are there are 5 that are classified as public service. That's Mr. Corney, Mr. Sheldon, Mr. Douglas, our mechanics. The mechanics.
That's fine, public service,
And in Lansing building, we have a phone operator and our student.
correct.
We currently have 11 full-time refuse collectors, but we're down 2. There should be 13. And
Must
we
be
lost
new.
2 last year.
Must be new because this was on. Oh, I see. Okay, down to
I mean, if you're looking at December payroll, they weren't here in December either.
December 5th.
Right. I mean,
It was November.
the 2 employees that left the city last year left prior to this. And we have 1 part-time refuse collector when we have 4 part-time staff. So we have 1 out of 4 right there.
Ms. Blanco, I just have a question. I keep hearing, I nationally hear this phrase all the time, laying people off. The laying indicates that those people will be the problems. If either you're let go or you're laid off, there's a difference. There's a distinct difference.
I retracted that word at the beginning of this meeting.
Right.
So,
No, I think there's we're all saying the layoffs.
Well, to be clear, right, I don't want to confuse. you.
yeah,
And I appreciate this point. Whether it be classified as a layoff or the elimination of position that's currently filled, where we can slip somebody and say, we can't use you. The administration is not intending to do that. We're not.
That answered my question, because if you're not including people, to me, there's not a question between the survey, and between all of these other factors. Service, yeah, or visiting service now, speaking to the national organization. Yeah, I got it. Many numbers. So I really want to thank you for this presentation. If you're not willing to do what needs to be done to get us, as you mentioned before, fiscally responsible. Yesterday, you're creating the union. So this is, it seems that, you know, we talk about this.
Well, I want to make sure that we're clear here. I mean, it sounds like, you know, there are positions that could be eliminated through attrition. Somebody retires and you don't have to refill the position.
10 years from now,
No, we got people retiring.
one person.
Well,
Well, but you need only
we
3
lost
to get it
last year. And you had somebody retire a few months before that. So the thing is people do leave. And these positions can then be reviewed compared to the work that we have to do. And we can determine that whether we still need to fill that particular position. And if we don't, then there is savings. My promise has been, nobody's gonna lose their job. I'm not gonna send a letter to somebody who's currently working here saying, because we've made this change, your last day. That's not going to happen. But as other people part for whatever reason, and we've had departures, and we will continue to have departures, then we can review and see what positions we need to keep, and we're not going to need to keep all.
Listen, I feel that our organization needs to be definitely. And I would feel uncomfortable sitting in the prison when, you know, you got a 30-year-old on the job. One of the. Feel if I don't have a feeling that we're gonna be able to get them, you know, we are right now. I'm gonna go for it. Don't get my, but right now, it makes me just uncomfortable.
Thank you. I think the pending retirees, if you could just specify, are they drivers or are they? unrequired, you know.
They're all required this. As a matter of employment, no, there are no full-time employees without CDL.
Okay, so the people that come into the backyard, I typically see them as young gentlemen. Whereas the operators of the big truck, and they more seniority, they work for weight.
Well,
So-
that part is correct. Everybody really is CDL.
Okay, that's
We're
fine.
hiring for the CDL.
So what I'm understanding is,
And the Kubota operators operate all kinds of food and also for fire.
okay, well, thank you for specifying. But what I'm understanding is actual work that I see, because I watch them. They're extremely efficient as they go drive, right? Tend to be younger people. I don't see them retiring. Because the job that's demanded on them, they have to be fit people to do that kind of work, lift heavy, 50-pound. That's, so, I would argue that you're gonna wait through attrition, you'll be waiting a long time, because what I'm observing now, it's to be a younger.
Yes.
So we currently have, there's 13 we're looking at. It's 4 of them are part-time positions.
I don't know.
Is that not part of?
That's not what I understood when I looked at this on this side.
The
Two.
what made up the 13? Well, when we look at the maintaining what's the 13.
It's in- Ah. It's 18 months. Oh, yeah, you know, I added in.
Well, it's a commitment. But if we keep back our pickup over there, this number is only increase.
So,
If we keep back our pickup, this overall total numbers are continue to increase. If we transition to curbside and we move in that direction, we would eliminate the need for part-time employees. We have another employee that is planning on retiring. So now we're actually trying to have need to fill the open positions again goes away. We're trending down to potentially 6. Now, there is. And I understand where the mayor's coming from. Saying you don't want this, someone's fired or employee. They should be retained. Nobody wants to see anybody in a position where they're not employed anymore. But we can't trend in that direction. We can't do it. But taking no action. Just puts the city in the same place next year, 5 years, 10 years. We have to put ourselves in a position right now. Now we have to be great to do. We have younger residents. We have other cities we can learn from. How was the position in that? And we have the ability to do it. I think we should take advantage of it, because the cost will only continue to rise. Versus, and at the same time, we're looking for money for the facilities. It doesn't make any sense. We're instead of having a facility or not going to the residents to put something on the ballot. At least they have the trash there. At least we have that.
thank you. So. How long are you going to bank on this while we're funding eventually, still paying all of the first program? In addition to paying for the new equipment for this curbside pickup and paying for, you're still gonna have those because you have to pay for all of this new equipment and training for those in, you know, the existing positions for them to be doing these other tasks. The money has to come from somewhere, people are not going to be on this.
We've heard stated before, there was grant money for curbside pickup for trucks.
I have to.
That's represented as to be these accounts. So they, but there's no money available to make it back.
There's, I think that's the first thing what's you know, the second survey that came out, the results of that, 1 out of 3 individual surveyed, preferred automated payment. The other 2/3 did not. So option F was the only option. Automated first response chose that option. So I think to me, that's almost out right away. It's all covered. You also have those 6 options here. Out of the plurality of votes, respondents surveyed 51%. Plurality is towards the current method. And one thing to understand, though, out of those responses, 57% of those responded chose that. It's 3 out of 6 options. So the numbers were there. I don't.
I think those. Notable to me is that those numbers, second survey included all of the GCs.
My understanding is that JC students will probably so it's just a survey.
The ones that live on campus were taken out of the analysis.
Right, that's disingenuous to say that. Sure, I think it's a little. Our living campus should be out, if we don't know the plans of the university, their obligation will be on.
And to your point, if they're younger and they're in a younger, I think they're not.
Wait, so. We have somebody that's been in the community, whether it's socially discounted. And one sort of it's rental. What they're, I mean, numbers really split hairs here, we can't go back. And redo this. So the point is whether the resident or it's JCU student graduate or undergraduate, they took the time to complete this thing. To say this is what they would prefer. Because at that time, JCU had not announced the plans. So at that time, they were planning on, they made up and remaining in the house. That they wanted to see curbside pickup. And I don't think we should try to discount it. Remember, this was the snapshot of time. That's correct.
And the other majority responses still backyard pickup, even with JCU students. Between the survey,
Between 18 and 49, they prefer.
well, okay, but you're segmenting one. They're not weighted anymore. I mean, I'm young, I'm planning on my parents. So I don't see how being a young person and their perception matters more when we all have an equal say. Just like in elections, young people prefer one candidate over older people who prefer this candidate. It comes down to the numbers. Now, it may be that we're seeing a trend here, other people prefer curbside. I bet if we did a survey in 10 years, I have different answers. At this point in time, we don't see the numbers sustainably in play. It's possible that trend may continue in the future, and we will get a change sometime in the future if you want to age and maintain the same preference that they had.
Thank you. What kind of phone?
For that thought,
Yeah, do you have a cell phone? You have both. What do you use?
technically both, because the landline is in security.
No, if you want to talk to your friends, colleagues, coworkers. You use landline or cell?
I use my cell phone,
Why do you use your cell phone?
because I can put it on my purse.
It's more convenient, or makes your day more efficient.
You know what else is more convenient? I can go out.
What is also used at the same time. Usually does. Sign up for the service, you can get your hands for it.
Then we're not gonna save money on that.
You're gonna have control.
You're gonna have to-
If you look at the reason why we use cell phones, the reason why we use that computers as opposed to desktop, it gives us flexibility, it's convenience. You're taking advantage of technology to move forward. You know, you could, in theory, go out of town and you could talk to your coworkers, use your laptop and cell phone, as opposed to having to postpone your vacation.
But your example, if your example is the opposite, it is not flexible. If you have a flexibility when it's in the backyard. You don't have to be home to take the trash out. So, you know, we just came off a big holiday, which we produced a lot of trash. I did not have to go down to the street 16 times to take all these things. So the option that we have currently wasn't.
Right, so. There was the Cedar Road project. We had to come back for a special session in regards to. Things with crosswalks. It's about 100,000. Your comment.
Was 200.
Your comment at that time was you were not going to vote for something. For an increase. in the budget.
No,
That's what
my
it
vote was, I was not going to approve something that wasn't.
You said you were going to vote for an increase to allow that.
Because it was not budgeted, number one. Number two, because we were misled on the scope of work. And number three, there was a bid bust. In which there were deduct alternates to make the job cheaper. It only made sense, and that's irrelevant to this discussion.
So,
But the current method of pickup is budgeted. This year's budget, so I do support things. If you were to come to me in June and say I want to take it, I would have the same response. It's not in the budget.
I view my long-term view. We have an opportunity. To. Take money. Move it towards, as an example, facilities. And the service director has said that nobody would lose their job if we sign.
But then you wouldn't save money.
Given. What we're spending, but now we can take, we're filling positions that are open. We can take people we have.
I don't know, I'm further blown away by the fact that we're gonna go against the will of the people. Something that does not save money. Just because.
I'm gonna dispute both of those. It's not against. It's not a majority of people that want feedback. It has the results right, I think the results right here, it's gonna be RRS survey, table 12. And then-
Table 12.
And then, or table 11.
Table 11.
And then the table 11 conclusions and remarks. We've got 5 out of 10 residents preferring a curbside method such as automated, semi-automated, or manual collection, and only 4 out of 10.
That's not true. That's not true. 57%. Let's actually stop, let's do that. Okay. Let's add this up. It's all open right here. 442 people. Option B is a curbside. Option C is current back door at 390. Option D is current back door at 36. Option E is all curbside, and option F is all curbside. That totals 517 people out of 911. So 56.75 or around 57% of those responding want your pickup. The table you just gave.
The table that I'm giving you is, we've also got weighted data, right? Data based upon population distribution. we had an outsized number of folks over 50 responding to the survey, and we had an under response under 50. And when you weight for population, it's not the numbers you're talking.
Why can't it be one vote for one
It's not a vote.
one preference?
No, if we put on the ballot, do you want backyard pickup or not? And then there was a vote, that would be a vote. That's not, a survey is not a vote. And a survey is subject to analysis. You have analysis, disregarding analysis, cherry picking raw numbers.
I just have a hard time going against the will of the people. The people are the people that voted in a survey, and 6 out of 10 wanted to keep backyard assault. You're the one going against the will of the people.
Survey is not.
60% of the.
That's how I'm making my decision.
John,
Meanwhile, I'm getting two resident surveys. Like I got this one just the other day. Couple of new residents moved to Edgewood, not exactly the flattest part of town. And they, you know, they moved here from Upper Arlington. And, you know, final question in the new resident survey is what suggestions would you offer to city services? Answer. I would really like a large city provided trash can that I can roll at the end of my driveway, rather than having pickup by the house and having to provide my own trash. I mean, this is the trend.
It's a person, it's that person's opinion.
It is that person's opinion, but it's also representative of the overall trend.
Every year, and you'll see.
It goes to show we're not going to make a change. 50, it was 50.1. The fact that we are a divided city, half voting this way, half choosing to go this way, shows that the city is not ready. But it isn't 50, it's 57.
my comment. We have an opportunity to modernize, we have an opportunity to cut maybe 40% of budget for the waste collection. And I understand the importance of the survey. I look at who's gonna, the numbers between 18 and 49 curbside. And I'm not including myself, it's fortunately not in that age group, but do I like backyard pickup? I agree, but we have an opportunity, we should take advantage of it.
I have some questions about the numbers on the collection cost comparison sheet. Mrs. Stack, did you prepare for that?
Yes.
All right. From on the line, 2023 budget outsourced non-rubbish service work.
Yes.
In the first column where it says current municipal in-house bag recycling is $460,000. And then in all other alternatives, it drops to $445,000.
Yes.
What's the $15,000?
You pay difference to Minutemen, that is something we may be able to bring in. It's the one outsource service, 15,000-20,000, that is, that we have the skill set and equipment. The rest of it we don't. It's your repair.
Okay, so the 15,000
It's
reduction
basically 20.
assumes that we eliminate hiring part-time employees for seasonal parking. So the $15,000 reduction contemplates that we would not hire the seasonal employees for the collection. Is that correct? Not done
Yes.
with
So I think we would not
Hire.
Minutemen.
right, that's the minute.
It's possible. It's a possibility because there was some discussion this year about, well, can we bring any, is there any possibility of bringing any of the outsourced service work in-house? And that's the only amount. So you don't have to do it. I'm just suggesting that of the 406,000, about 15,000 can be brought in-house possible.
Okay, so there's nothing intrinsic to switching to loose recycling pickup in the backyard
No.
that connects
It's
to
stuck.
the seasonal employees who regularly.
Right.
Okay, so really, if we can't make that connection, then we can add the 15 back in.
It's up to you. I mean, that's an administrative decision.
Well, you wrote the sheet. I mean, I'm trying to see the rest of this.
into why, but ultimately, anything that's discussed here ends up as an administrative decision, and that's just one of them. Do you want to bring it, are you able to bring it in the house? If you are able to, and you have the staff, you have the skill set and the equipment to do so, but it's just a very small portion of that house. That's all it is.
Quite confidently say that we're not gonna have services staff and
Yes.
not hire
Back in.
the seasonal leaf rate collectors. That there's no connection between that and switching to shaker style.
Correct. No, it's totally a question of, is there a possibility? Is it even possible for our city to bring it in-house? That's all it is. It's not tied to a collection method. This is what we currently have, and we're outsourcing it. And under any other scenario, it's possible.
So what is the 55,000 on the 5-year capital expenses annualized?
Well, there are some capital truck expense. I believe it's 275,000, and that would be amortized over a few years.
What truck is that?
I believe it's a garbage truck.
Is that an additional truck to the trucks we already have?
So there was a discussion, I believe, about our equipment. I took this in a while ago. There was some discussion about the AV. Folks.
I think it's about 55,000.
Okay, to replace the truck. Because they're aging and it was that schedule that Mr. provided.
But it looks like your point you're making is it's 55 across the board, not one option, let them fully outsource that. Only impacts the last option.
How do you come up with $55,000 a year for replacing garbage?
It's to put it aside. I think I
It's not $275,000.
Yeah.
The capital. The capital. And we're putting more money.
Okay, so this is not about purchasing an additional, like, it's increasing the size of the fleet is what I'm saying.
place.
This is replacement, so there are no capital expenses annualized for related equipment for any. You know, if we were to employ the shaker style method of payment, then the equipment we need is wholly different than what we have.
That was not my intention.
Well, how would we do it?
So this gets into, I have ideas. This gets into a discussion where you on several occasions, for instance, in the Charter Review Commission discussions have accused council of stepping out of its legislative responsibilities into administration. So I put that to administration, figure out, I am more than happy to engage in a discussion, but I've been accused of so many things by you that I dare not do that. So if you want to engage in a functional and productive conversation, you can talk about scenarios. I could even ask you about this because you don't answer my emails or my calls or whatever. So there are ways to do it. There are creative ways, and to have a brainstorming session would be wonderful. But we have to have a collaborative partnership and functional communication style in order to engage on that.
Can we agree that there is nothing in here about any kind of capital expense or different equipment than the equipment we have now?
Correct. Not in this scenario.
So in this scenario, where we come up with municipal in-house loose recycling in the backyard is the cheapest of 5 alternatives on here. It's not the cheapest if we add in the $15,000, and it's not the cheapest if we factor in a yet to be had discussion about all of the capital expenditures we will need for split back, rear load backer.
Yeah.
Yes. And for what would be the other?
Again.
If you're going to create numbers, you're going to. Oh, right now, I'm trying to just see where these numbers.
That's the premise. And we might find that there's time to do it differently. Right now, we go up the driveways, put the solid trash in the tip, in the hopper, and the bags in the front receptacles. We put the blue bags on a corner, and then later on, a truck comes and picks it up. You could do a couple of different things. You could either, by reassessing the routes to make it more efficient, so that there's time in the afternoon to perhaps do solid waste, maybe several days a week or hours during the week, and then do recycling separately. Or dispatching, I said in the way beginning when I went to visit Pepper Pike, they dispatch their recycling truck and their trash truck at the same time. And the instructions there are to load the recycling truck first, and then the trash truck. What that does is we have sometimes where collectors, the fronts fill up quickly, so they throw the blue bags in the back, and then that ends up being mixed with the solid trash. So by dispatching both trucks and the Bodas dispelling, the recycling first, that could accomplish both. You can also, we have two Kubotas. Does one do the recycling and the other one does the solid trash at the same time? And then the recycling goes faster, comes back and continues to assist with the solid waste on that street. There are several ways. Just that's off the top of my head. But there are ways to do it with our current equipment. I did ask at the Shaker Tour, and I read that you weren't able to come.
I've been to the Shakers.
Well, I spoke to the welders there, because they actually retrofit their own clothes. It's a different model, okay? And they actually retrofit the 60, 40, 50, 50, whatever it is that tips in, which is a fantastic system. But I'm not sure we have the appetite for investing in that type of equipment. However, while the truck is expensive and possibly reimbursable by the Ohio EPA, the tipper, the hoppers are retrofitted in-house by the welder, what they say, for dollars. It was not expensive. The problem is, and I asked about our specific Kubota models. The problem is our models, the front cannot accommodate the hopper because it's too low under the windshield, as opposed to the back, which is high up to tip in. So it would require something a little different. But I did ask that question, and that's when I decided that we explain with our current equipment. Retrofitting would have been wonderful. We sort of can, if you want to retrofit that and talk to, find out how we could weld it, or we could adopt that model, and then get the trucks paid by the Ohio EPA. We could do that reimbursement. We could do that. That would be wonderful. I'm gonna say, but there are different scenarios, and yes, we could do that, and I did not do that in this scenario. But I did speak to somebody, April Stevens at the Ohio EPA, and she referred me to someone at the recycling partnership. I didn't get to speak to that person, and it's Vincent, who manages the grants, but I did. So there are conversations to be had if you really want to do it, and you want to improve recycling, and you want to maintain backyard, and you want to have improved rates and be cost effective while doing it. The investment is reimbursed with a very lower cost. It can be done with some really foresight and planning.
Well, I think we can
How about
agree that the numbers here are, and we have numbers from our, which are far
Old.
they're only 20.
It's 22 and 23.
Okay, but you have no capital expenditures with regards to.
It's just trying to.
Right. Well, our risk as the federal
Finding, but curbside automated them.
Yeah, that's the sin.
So there's a limit in the Bible regardless. We're gonna qualify for grants if we do that. We're gonna get.
We just heard we can qualify for.
No, I hear. We're gonna have to
You
go.
can do trucks that are split, and then you can do your own Kubotas. I believe you can, again,
And then
I have
second,
preliminary
it's
discussion.
not going to anything other than cars.
That's from the Recycling Partnership or from the Waste District, that's from the education there, that's not from the, I'm sorry, that's from the EPA. No. it's from the Recycling Partnership. There are probably more out there, I think I did a lot of great job that the administration could have been doing over the last 5 years. So making calls, I work full time, 32 hours a week, okay? Plus I have other responsibilities, so it's essentially full time, and then I do this. Calls could be made and information could be had. It doesn't depend on us.
It doesn't.
Mr. King?
Thank you, Mrs. Ennis. I went on the tour. But I just really don't find. Right, this whole house. I think we've got everything. Use and recycle.
That's the easy way out. That's the easy way out, buy equipment and just do that. There's another way to really figure out what resources you have and how to possibly make it work better. And that has not been done for sure since 2004. Or whatever. And, you know, like I said, I ran these numbers by Ms. Kennedy. As far as the assumption for new equipment, sure, but I think we could do better. We haven't even tried with our current equipment or planning.
I asked that question, sure, and the cost difference between their quotas. Shows the bigger model, caps. They had nothing to do with the hopper tragedies. It was the size of the cap.
The site, the operators wouldn't fit on our side.
We had the same hopper, theirs were just right.
Well, yeah,
Very special.
Sure, but they're the same, the hoppers are the same size as the cabin. And that was just the progress. And they also keep their fleet, places once, where they, turn in, do not get all. We could look.
we replaced the stations.
We replace the quotas every 8 years and Shaker keeps her law.
That Mr. Corney was there and he was part of that conversation. Okay. So,
We also don't have a transfer. So we don't have a place where we can dump a split load packer locally in order to dump out both recyclables and solid waste.
I have not looked into all the particulars of that because like I said, we first have to look at the equipment and the processes and the flow that we currently have and can improve that. To my knowledge, that has not been done. So before you go out and spend a bunch of money and make all these big plans, it's probably worth it to do some look, you know, internal inventory and try to figure out how to improve the system we have now for many reasons.
Anytime that we have reviewed routes, made changes to them, or let me finish. Or, you know, that has all been done with outside assistance, with somebody like GP Environmental. I mean, if that is the direction you would like to go, then my suggestion would be to engage GP Environmental on reviewing our routes for the current equipment and seeing alternatives.
Well, what are we, the service director and the supervisor and the foreman at Shaker Heights needs to be. I think that Mr. Cordy is an intelligent engineer who would be fully capable of talking to his colleagues, learning some best practices, and trying to assess what we have here. As far as reviewing the routes, again, my knowledge has been reassessed, rerouted since 2004.
When they were, it was done, I believe, by GP.
Okay, that's 18 years.
Right, and it's not like the city's grown, we haven't added any stuff. We don't.
The routes, okay, in terms of larger families in certain areas, and you know, it's normal. It needs to be assessed periodically, no matter what. To see what, that's just part of good business review is, you know, evaluation is part of continuous quality improvement.
Many years ago, there was a group of service and then we were talking to, a group of people, and they had their own people, and we talked to people on the ground. I do think that time can be freed up.
Talking to service people, they do that in Baker too, that's part of their process. And they could have some amazing consultants that somebody in the office couldn't possibly. No, part of doing good. Yes.
But I think we had, I think we had a great discussion, I think example, I think, again, I think that will work. If you look at the survey show the majority of residents want to keep that there. And I'm not saying that 3 to 5 years from now, we're going to keep. But there might be, and I fully, what you said is top of my mind always. We have the facilities coming up. You know, there's things that happen that we might need to come back to this, but right now, we did surveys for these specifically to get feedback from the residents. That's what council and at one time the mayor wanted. So the majority on those surveys said that right now that backyard pickup is what is preferred. However, I do think that everybody since, not however, but everybody also said that they want to increase it. So I think we have an opportunity to use all of them, which I think it's multifaceted. I think you could have loose, I think city could purchase bins for everybody. I think you have to go out and bid the MERS, right? Because I think other ones have more opportunity to recycle different and more. I think that's a piece to this that needs to be looked at as well. So that's my takeaway from the. Yeah.
It should be giving people things who don't want it, won't use it, or will, like you said, give you back contents that are inappropriate, or contaminated. You're missing. So I agree with everything you did.
And you know, I thought we have this new group in University Heights, the green team. I wonder if they may be interested in helping us with outreach and communication and training and poorly word about this and encouraging as many people as possible to continually opt in and learn how to lessen contamination and, you know, lessen the wishful recycling and improve. So the word about the MRF, yes, I definitely believe we should be bidding that out, but it will be predicated on us transitioning to loose. Wherever that is. Yes.
I'll just note that we don't have to go back out to bid. That we can opt in to the recycling social content, the low rate and other options that any other consortium community receive by switching to. So you don't have to make a decision to switch to using.
Work, to receive what's out here. You know, and we may not, it'd be nice to, I don't know how long it takes to transition to this, so we need to be plan and purchasing, you know, just. So that it needs to be a timeline. And we may or may not meet, I think it's May 1st, you sign for September 1st.
We don't have to go back out to bid, as long as we switch
Right.
to loose, we can switch to the loose price from the portion. We don't have to do that. So it's anything that is, we can, you know, we start providing these track, we get that, we get that additional.
Thank
you
you
know,
for reminding me.
so it's one of the-
It's great. It's, and then we were following the 2020 solid waste study, which, by the way, the recommendations, if we read them, they say things like, if you decide to maintain the current system, then consider this alternate recommendation. So all bases are covered. Okay. So I feel very strongly that at this time to do the will of the people as they provided their preferences through 2 opportunities this year. I feel strongly about education and really jumpstarting that and moving that forward in many ways. I feel strongly about improving the recycling rates, and it seems like loose recycling is the way to go for many reasons. Based on, and there was discussion about, well, really taking a hard look at how to implement cost savings and efficiencies through staff reduction, attrition is what was described. So I heard all of that. That latter point may require us to go back to our residents at some time in the future. Maybe that's 5 years, and then it's 10 years, and we'll see what the age, ages. But that is an opportunity. It's done in incremental steps. The facility, I don't know when it's going to be built. I don't know what the final price tag is going to be. So there are some moving parts, but based on what we do know, and 3 things, like I said at the beginning, to maintain backyard collection, to improve recycling, and to maintain the current service staff. Based on those things, I would like to make a motion for the following directives to go to council. Number 1, continue backyard garbage and recycling collection, the transitioning to modernizing loose recycling. Number 2, update rubbish routes for improved efficiencies on the many points that we described to me. Number 3, the administration to obtain quotes for the city to purchase 32 gallon or whatever right amount is. I would like Mr. Corney to weigh in on this. Recycling bins, not carts at this time, in order to modernize our city's recycling efforts in the transition to loose recycling collecting in the backyard. I would like to, motion that we embark upon a voluntary sign up opt-in, plan, that is free of charge, that is easy to do, that will reach as many residents as possible to make it, it's not just online, it's however we can reach people to, give them the opportunity to get a free bin or so, to be able to participate as fully as possible. That comes with an educational piece based on the current MRF that we are dealing with. I was going to include the bid for different MRFs, but at this point, I think that's premature because we haven't yet, someone's putting the cart before the horse. And as Mr. Lewis said, the minute we transition to this, we can get that wonderful price break on recycling. So it's those 4 items.
Let's second that motion. I think that there's the reason I say that middle ground, and I think that this respects both the will of the people as well as moving in the right direction for the public.
So do we go through it all? So, Mr. Lee, you're on the committee.
That's the question.
Mr. Poole. And Mr. So this will be on the next council agenda?
Yes,
Okay.
so how do you?
I really want to thank everyone sitting here for their input and for their passion to improve recycling, to do what's best for the city. We may have different outlooks on what best is right now. And again, I do extend that collaborative olive branch to engage in productive discussions to figure out how to do it with what we have. Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone who tuned in online. I would like to say that shows your interest in getting into this important issue as well. We adjourn. We might have to have a motion.
I will take a second.